muy malo. Roto el pato de vestuario. La interpretación siempre negativa. Siempre negativa. Nunca positiva.
Hello, welcome to Siempre Positivo as Barcelona make it 2 wins from 2 to kick off the new La Liga season. Coming from 2-0 down to beat Levante 3-2 on Saturday. I'm Sam Marsden, joined by Toni Juan Martí. Toni, back from Norway and bringing the Norwegian weather with you.
Good afternoon. How's everything, Sam? Yes, fine. Went to the north, to Norway, for 8 days. So, everybody knows that Barcelona in summer is too hot in terms of temperature. So, to escape from this unacceptable weather, we went to Norway, and was my first time there. It's incredible there. I don't know if you've been there, but Norway, it was amazing. We did this famous trip to Trolltunga, which is a stone, which is, I don't know how to describe it in English, like almost pending in the air. So impressive to be there. So, yes, great days there. Now back to reality, which is a little bit depressing. What about you?
Yeah, well, back in Barcelona after some time in England. Came back last week. Obviously had the doctor's checkup with my broken elbow. Had the stitches out and the cast off and the sling on. So the recovery is going well. And yeah, ready for the season. It felt like the truce. I know Barca obviously played against Mallorca last weekend, but it felt like the season for me truly started on Saturday because I went down to Valencia for the...
Which is the update of your Celebrate participation? When can you receive green light from doctors to play again?
It's a good question. I don't know yet. My evolution will mark my return to the pitch. But a good step last week as they took the stitches out and the cast. You've seen there's still a lot of bruising and obviously a big wound where the surgery was on my broken elbow and on the broken bones in my arm. So we'll see. The next appointment they've said is September the 10th. So there'll be no return to football before September the 10th. Yeah, I don't know really. I don't know how, because it's a strange one, isn't it? Because it's not the leg or the arm. It doesn't not the leg or like the ankle or the knee. Sorry, it doesn't massively affect me from playing football. But at the same time, you'd be surprised, I guess, how often a barge or anything into the elbow or something could sort of redo damage. So you have to be a little bit careful.
100% at the end. Try one day to play football without using the arms, and you'll see that it's suiciding. We don't give this value, but even if it's a friendly game, if you try one game, just one day to play this kind of sports without the arms, and you will suicide. You use it every time. So, well, good news, no? Good news, and also good news coming from the purple world.
Clarets. We're called the Clarets.
The Clarets are the purple world, no? Because, again, good news in the first home game. I was following the game in Norway, wanting to send you a message, but I couldn't send you nothing at the end.
I'm not going to get carried away because it's a win against a fellow newly promoted side, but important to get that first win on the board, especially with the fixtures that we've got. Well, to start the season, obviously Tottenham in the first game, and now we've got Manchester United, Liverpool, Manchester City all coming up in the next 4 or 5 games.
Bien.
Right, to Saturday, the Ciutat de Valencia Stadium in Levante, where Barça had to come from behind again. It felt a lot like last season as they were 2-0 down against Levante at half-time. Levante having a lot of joy in transition against Barca's high line. They took the lead in the 15th minute through Ivan Romero, and they made it 2-0 on the stroke of, in first half stoppage time when Jose Luis Morales scored from the penalty spot. 38 years old now and always seems to deliver the goods against Barcelona. His direct running in behind caused problems even before we were talking about Flick's high line last season. In previous years he was always a menace for Levante in some of those classic games between Barca and Levante, and he once again was on Saturday, and he gave Barca something to think about at half-time, and Hansi Flick responded. It had been a first start for Marcus Rashford. Flick making a few little tweaks to the team that had beaten Mallorca the previous week, with Frenkie de Jong out following the birth of his his child. There was a start for Marc Casado alongside Pedri. Rashford also came into the team for Fermin Lopez, with Rafinha deployed in a more central role, Lamine on the right, and Ferran Torres still up front. But at half-time, Flick went back to what he knew. He brought Gavi on for Casado, putting him alongside Pedri, and he brought Dani Olmo on for Marcus Rashford, moving Rafinha back to the left, and Barca roared back. In less than 7 second-half minutes, they were already level. First of all, a golazo from Pedri hammering in from 25 yards, which completely changed the game. Really, moments that changed the game. Obviously, the longer Levante could have held on, the more difficult it could have got for Barca. But 2-1, those doubts come in, and pretty soon after it was 2-2. A Rafinha corner and a goal. Second goal of the season, goal in each game so far for Ferran Torres. It stayed 2-2 for a long time. At that point, you're probably thinking Barca go on and win it. There were chances for both teams. Joan Garcia made some saves. Barca obviously well in command at this point. It looks like the goal wouldn't come, but it did come in stoppage time. Lamine Yamal, once again, the architect, coming in onto his left. He hadn't had his best game, actually. He'd struggled against the Levante back four. Not that he hadn't kept trying. His shooting was a little bit off. Just not the Lamine, the very best Lamine. But even not the best Lamine can still change games. And he came in at the end. His cross headed into his own net by Unai Algazabal, and Barca 2 from 2 in LaLiga. 6 points, Tony. I don't know. I've seen some analysis, not just of Barca, just of a lot of teams after 2 games, and you can get a little bit of a read on teams. I kind of think these days, with the way the transfer window is, the way teams don't have, Barca did this year, but often come into pre-seasons on the back of international tournaments, club tournaments this year. I kind of think it's a little bit like, get through your first 3 games, through the first September international break, and then you start to see the proper team from there. And the important thing is just to pick up these points early on, which is what Barca have done. And once again, showing, I think it was Ferran Torres who called it their winning character. Some changes obvious changes from Flick to get Rafinha back onto the left, to get Gavi on, especially when you're 2-0 down. It's easier to make those more attacking changes. But Barca showing the resolve and the character that they showed last season to turn games around once again.
Bueno, a ver, different conclusions, no? First conclusion that you can say at the end, if I want or if we want this podcast to be promoted, no, you should at the beginning say that you will discuss interesting things. But to be honest, the biggest conclusion is that we cannot say nothing new. And this is the biggest positive thing that you can say to this Barca, no? Because again, same mistakes, same weak points than last season, and same good points than last season. Because with this plan, with the offside, you know that you'll be smashed every time. Every time, because if Levante can score you twice, even if there was that penalty, which is another chapter that we have to discuss, because this referee, whoa, it's incredible, because you compare it with that Tchouaméni action, and but apart from this, you will be smashed. But if you are smashed, but you are able to react and fight as you did last season, and you still, again, with your winning mentality, you get 3 goals, it's like, I think that's becoming a little bit like what happened with Rafa Nadal, no? Everybody knew in clay tournaments that even if he was behind, he was going at some point going to come back. And now maybe this can hurt some Barca supporters, but it's a little bit like Madrid. Barca is Real Madridizing. It's the process of becoming Real Madrid, because I think that everybody started to think when Barca scored, not even the 2-2, the first goal of Pedri, 2-1, hey, they are going to win. And everybody started to think, at the end they will get the comeback. So this is the biggest point of this Barca, that they are creating like a damage on the mind, on the head of the opponent, because if you start to believe that they will come back, at the end they'll do it. And the winning mentality of this team, this is incredible, no? Then it's another debate. Because when you don't have margin of mistakes, of error, what happened with Inter, okay, to win the Champions League is another chapter. But, Sam, in my opinion, before starting talking about concrete names, not playing the World Cup of FIFA, having a proper pre-season with all your players available. I think that the attitude of this team in this beginning of the season couldn't be better of what it has been.
I mean, I guess the first thing to talk about is also the first half, because Barca are obviously 2-0 down, and there's like you say, the symptoms, the signs of last season, and the high line, easy for teams to get behind in transition, to do damage, to score against Barca. But I also wanted to highlight, I don't know what you thought, but you see 2-0 down at half time, you see Casado and Rashford taken off, and you perhaps think it's because of them. I think it was more just systematic. Barca's setup from the start wasn't the best. I don't think Rafinha, and I don't know if we'll see it again, and I don't know if it could work in games, but I don't think he particularly worked through the middle. He's obviously so dangerous from the left, the way he plays for Barca, that he needed to get back over there. I thought Rashford did okay, really. He was quite direct. He beat his man a few times. There was a nice nutmeg. So I think it was more just he was just sort of a victim of that. Obviously, there's work to do. He still needs lots of adaptation in terms of playing that left role in Barca against teams when he doesn't get as much space. Obviously, he'd rather have much more space. He'd probably work. I don't know if Balde and him are quite the combination yet that Balde and Rafinha can be. So there's certainly work to be done there. Because Casado was okay. He had one great defensive recovery to stop a transition. It was just the fact that Barca needed to switch things up to chase the game. And they had created chances in the first half. I mean, there was a great one for Varane, which he has to score. And he just whacks it, puts his foot through it and hits the bar when he just has to... He could really just place it into the corner from the position that he's in. There were a couple of sort of half chances, Lamine, Rafinha from distance, which were straight at the keeper, which in other times you'd expect them to maybe do a little bit better. So it wasn't that Barca were awful in the first half. It was, game situations. Perhaps they could have set up a little bit differently against a low block. So I don't think they were... there's too much blame to be given to too many people at this stage of the season. And then, they correct things in the second half and roar back. Toni, what have you made of not just Marcus Rashford on Saturday, but just how he's settled in since he signed in the whole sort of pre-season, Mallorca, Levante? Now, obviously not a lot of minutes to go by, but have you heard anything? You like what you see or anything?
No, well, at the end, it's easy that, of course, you want to prove that you can have minutes. You know that he's not going to be starter. We don't have to forget that at the end, no one is stupid. I mean, if Manchester United accepts to bring him out on loan, it's not because he's Neymar and they are stupid. I mean, of course he can be a great tool, but if you take a look on the performance of Marcus Rashford in the last 4 years, he's a little bit inconsistent. It's true that when he's clinical and when he has the day, he can be top player, but it would be a mistake if we believe that he can be the new Lamine or something unbelievable, because in Spanish we say no hay duros a cuatro pesetas. It means there are not 10 euros at the price of 5, which would be the translation. It means that magical things do not exist in football, and if you got him on loan, it's because of something, no? But I think it's a perfect tool that you can use to play in counter-attack, as he has shown, with good 1-against-1. Of course, he's lacking a little bit of precision. How do you say precision?
Precision. Just when you mean what the final details of the final pass,
Yeah, exactly, with these things, but it's normal at the end. He needs to get adapted. He needs to get used of this. A couple of goals, of course, would help him. He had on the Gamper that action which was almost goal, but then with the left foot he missed it. But it's important for me that you give him the confidence, the trust to put him as a starter, even if he went out. So you cannot expect him to show his best version right now. But it's true that if you count on Lewandowski as a starter, we would say that Ferran is ahead of him. So still he needs, before thinking on being starter, he needs to place himself on the first option in the bench, which is not the current situation. I don't know what's your opinion with what you have seen with Rashford.
Well, but I think if you're making up the squad, doing like a squad picture, first 11, I think he is the backup to Rafinha on the left.
Yeah, of course. Yes, but what I want to tell you is that if right now, for example, Rafinha is injured, we would rather see him as a starter and Ferran on the bench, or even if Ferran is the number 9, he would play before Rashford.
So what you're saying, that let's say Barca's front four is Lamine Yamal, Olmo, Rafinha and Lewandowski. You're saying if Rafinha's injured, who plays on the left, Ferran or Rashford?
I think that even if it's the natural position of Rashford and Ferran is only being a 9, the way he's performing would make that he would start ahead of Rashford, even if it was as a left winger, right now. But still, this situation has not happened yet. Maybe next week we can see Lewandowski as number 9, Rashford on the left, and Ferran in the bench. But I want to tell you is right now it's quite difficult to put Ferran on the bench because he's living like a honeymoon with the goal.
Yeah, I think we might see quite a few, not just based on the Levante game, but I think against Rayo and perhaps after the international break as well, against Valencia and Getafe, I think we will see chances for all players to start. Obviously, Flick didn't really have that luxury last season because there were quite a few injuries. He had to play the same team pretty much every week, and that was why when we got to that Osasuna game, was it end of September, beginning of October, and end of September, I think, he had to make so many changes in one go. I think this year he can, you've got Lewandowski and Olmo on the bench on Saturday, plus Firmino. You've got players who can come in and rest Rafinha, Lamine, Ferran, Lewandowski, or whoever it is. You've got players who can rest Pedri and Frenkie in midfield, and Casado and Gavi. So I think, we will see minutes for everyone up until sort of end of September perhaps, and then we'll see the team start to take shape. And then, like you say, other things to do with injuries. I think if Rafinha's injured, you play Rashford on the left. But it depends on when that would happen, when that hypothetical situation would happen in the season, what the games are, etc. I think Ferran is the backup or the alternate striker. I mean, Ferran could be the number 9 now. Can you take him out when he scored 2 goals in 2 games?
Bueno, it's a pity we don't have Rick Sharma here to apologize our listeners and also me for his constant lack of respect towards the Shark. Situation is what it is. I said that Rafinha would smash it. I keep trusting Ferran, and that's why Rick is Chelsea supporter and I am Barça supporter. You know the difference. No, without jokes. In football, normally we say, this is better than this. This guy is better than this. And this doesn't exist. This doesn't exist. It's not that someone is better than someone. You have to say, at this point, or at this level of confidence, because in football, everything is confidence. And even if, of course, we know that Ferran has a lack of quality comparing with top strikers when it comes to make the finishing touch or the finishing shot, with these levels of self-confidence, now it's difficult to replace him because his feet and I don't know, he's very useful. The problem is that he had times when he didn't have the self-confidence. But right now, I think it won't be easy for Hansi Flick to explain him, because Sam, tell me, if you are Flick this week, how can you tell Ferran that he will be on the bench and will be Lewandowski the starter? Which reason would you give him if you are Hansi Flick? Okay, Ferran, come to my office, we will speak. What would you tell him? What?
Yeah, difficult. They seem to have a good little. They did a bit of banter on the touchline as well. On one of the drinks. Maybe Ferran will start. Maybe despite everything I've just said about changes, maybe he'll go back to, Rafinha. I guess the question is on the 10 role. Do you think there's any situation where they play? I can't imagine Lamine not starting. I can't imagine Rafinha not starting this weekend. Do you think there's any situation where, obviously against Levante it was Rashford, against Mallorca it was Firmino, Dani Olmo's come off the bench in first games. I would expect him to start in Rayo Vallecano. Do you think there's ever a situation where Flick could play Lewandowski? I mean, they both ended the game on the pitch against Levante. Do you think he could play them almost as a front two, Lewandowski and Ferran?
It's a good question for me. It's a good question and interesting. But to be honest, I don't think I don't think it. Because Ferran is good when it comes to breaking into the space, running, appearing on the box, and Lewandowski is the same, no? So, in my head, if I imagine this, it would be a too empty midfield, because you would have only the double pivot, whether it's either it's Frankie and Pedri or whoever it is, because if the number 10 is a second striker, the team would be too splitted. So I don't think that's going to happen. To be honest, I imagine more what I told you. Rafinha as a number 10 and Ferran as a fake wing. Like, okay, you are on the fake wing, but go into the box because it's there where you can create the damage. I think Flick has a problem, and I think normally coaches try to find solutions which are to avoid the conflict, and this would be an option to avoid the conflict. Not Fermin, not Olmo, not Rashford. I use Rafinha as a number 10, I put Ferran as a fake wing, and then we see what happens, because if Ferran doesn't score, maybe I have the perfect reason in the next game to say, okay, you start on the bench. Or maybe if I put Ferran as a fake wing and he scores and I win, next day I can do the same. So I wouldn't rule out that we can see Ferran as a fake wing.
Yeah, I think Rafinha and Ferran, and this is what Rashford and Balde will have to learn to do slightly better, because Rashford is someone that likes to come in, but he also stays a bit wider, and obviously with the fake wing on the left, Balde does fly down the left and give you that width. So that's an interesting option. Talking of Balde, just to finish on the Levante game, you said we talk about the penalty decision, which made it 2-0 to Levante just before the break. Levante broke. Brilliant. Actually, it was a brilliant initial sort of recovery challenge from Balde, which didn't end the break, but it sort of ended their chance of scoring at first. Ball came to Morales. It looked like he should have played the ball to the right, where he had a runner who would have tapped it in. Instead, he shot, and Balde's turned his body, it's hit his arm and gone out for a corner. The VAR has called the referee to review the situation, and he's given the penalty for handball. Like you say, there have been a lot of comparisons for the Tchouaméni situation in the Clásico, which wasn't given in Barca's favour at the end of last season. Where are you with this decision and the inconsistencies in the handball rule?
I think there's no point on saying that that's a penalty. I think Balde cannot do more to prevent of touching this with his arm, and you have this action with Tchouaméni on main Montjuic. So I said it several times. I'm normally critical with Barça. Some people can think of our listeners that I'm anti-Barça, and it's not true. I just try to keep the focus and not to wear Barca's scarf when analysing. But at the same time, even if Barca can have weak points also with Xavi, you have to say this. There's no point on this level of referees. It's incredible. If you compare with what happened with Tchouaméni's action, it's unbelievable. I mean, I always say the same, Sam. Barça and Madrid cannot complain about referees, but Madrid gets double of favors than Barça. So again, for me, well, maybe you think that it was a good decision, but I don't think so.
I don't think it was a good decision. I'm just so lost. I'm at a place with handballs where I just, especially in Spain and LaLiga, where I just think if it hits the player on the arm, more often than not, it feels like, unless it's like that Tchouaméni situation, like you say, maybe in some situations or some clubs or whatnot, is not true. But I always think that if it hits someone's arm, the referee is almost always, it feels like they always give it in Spain, however absurd the situation. So I've just given up sort of almost expecting them to not give them. But yeah, for me, it's not a clear one, no, not at all. Just before we look ahead to the final few days of the transfer window, and not too much going on at Barca, just a quick look around La Liga at this early stage. Worrying days for Girona. I've got absolute egg on my face suggesting that they may get a good start under Michel this season, because they followed up that loss to Rayo Vallecano by getting absolutely hammered 5-0 by Villarreal on Sunday. So they're looking really, really, really bad at the moment. And Michel said, we're not a team. I don't know how things are going to turn around, etc., etc. So yeah, I'm looking like an absolute absolute clown for that prediction that they maybe get off to a good start. Real Madrid winning as well to make it 2-2. They won away at newly promoted Real Oviedo 3-0. 2 goals for Kylian Mbappe and 1 for Vinicius, who started the game on the bench. And a surprise result in Madrid. Atletico Madrid really struggling at the start of the season. After losing to Espanyol, they were held 1-1 by Elche, newly promoted Elche.
I want to discuss with the Real Madrid issue, because the only game I have watched in this Liga is the game of Real Madrid, because I was back yesterday from Norway, and the only game that was missing to be played was this one. And if I said some days before that, I think I said it on this pod, no? That Xabi Alonso was starting to be the Xavi of Barça, like not getting the confidence or the trust of the board. I want to, well, I don't know if the levels of confidence, of trust have changed, but I want to change my opinion, because what I saw in Asturias, in this game in Asturias of Madrid against Oviedo, was for me extremely positive. Wow, extremely positive. Really, I got impressed. Madrid defending on the second half of the pitch with a lot of intensity, with a lot of freedom, with Carreras pushing, with the Huijsen Hausen, with Valverde, with Mbappe moving, with Güler working, with Mastantuono helping the right back, Carvajal. I got impressed. I know it's Oviedo. Oviedo is almost, of course, not enough team to compete with Madrid, but I was delighted with the attitude of Real Madrid players, what I saw. Amazing. Not the result. Forget about this. What I saw, the intensity, top. I loved what I saw from Real Madrid against Oviedo. It's true that I didn't see the game against Osasuna. Maybe it was different. But against Oviedo, for me, top performance.
Yeah, and a couple of big decisions as well. Like, it's the same with Barca. I think it's not easy to rotate early on, and players are obviously always going to be disappointed or upset to be left out, and it will be harder to do when there are, the Madrid derby, the Clásico, Champions League games, etc. But a couple of big early decisions to leave out Vinicius and Trent Alexander-Arnold as well. Perhaps just a little way of Alonso saying that no one's sort of guaranteed a place regardless of status, and it will come down to performances, etc.
Well, sí, claro. Cambios, Vinicius on the bench. The situation of the referee. Yeah, there are always a lot of things. No? If I have to tell you, even if Vinicius scored, I would tell you that I saw that he was not helping in terms of defending, and then it was when Oviedo created some danger. There is also this action of the possible punishment on the first goal of Oviedo with that foul of Tchouaméni. For me, it wasn't foul. It was a good tackle. In Premier League, it would have never been a foul. But I loved that he was brave enough to make some changes in the lineup. Good feelings. I had good feelings with Xabi Alonso, to be honest. Mastantuono, with Güler. Every decision that Xabi Alonso has been making, I think it's brave. So as long as results come, I think it's good for the dressing room, for sure.
Entonces hay que ser positivos, yo lo digo siempre. Y luego si viene una debacle o viene que no se cumplen los objetivos, pues oye, a seguir intentándolo. Pero hay que ser positivos, hay que afrontar la vida como tal, ¿no? Con positivismo. Yo soy así y me gusta pensar siempre en que van a venir cosas buenas.
Last week or so of the transfer window then, a few things for Barca to do. Mainly minor deals. We're expecting, as I think I said last week on last week's podcast, Oriol Romeu to rescind his contract in the coming days. Iñaki Peña to leave, links with Elche, also with Como. We'll see where he ends up going. Perhaps Hector Fort will also go out either on loan or a permanent deal. Barca still pending 3 first-team registrations. Wojciech Szczesny still not registered with the first team. Gerard Martin still not registered with the first team. And Rudy Bardghji. I don't know if he'll be able to have a second-team registration in the end or if he needs to be registered with the first team. Flick certainly appeared to suggest it will be with the first team. Toni, on the podcast on Friday, I spoke a lot about Marc Casado, about Fermin Lopez, apart from the obvious ones that I've just touched on, Romeu, Iñaki Peña, perhaps Hector Fort. Do you see any surprise business from Barca in the final week of the window?
how can I say this? I think Fermin and Casado will stay, but I also think there will be an invoice, a receipt of all what happened, because it's obvious, because I know how this club works, that through the media the club has been pressing Fermin and Casado to leave. For me, strange to do it that way, because players are not stupid, and it's dirty to do this, no? But I think they will stay both. But yes, the club is desperate to create fair play. There can be offers for both. Hansi Flick doesn't want to lose them for sure, but of course the club has their own needs. So I think it's not positive what happened, no? Because to have in the dressing room a player who can be angry, Fermin after all what he did last season, or Casado after selling this message to the media all the season that he was key part of the project and blah blah blah, now you try to get rid of him. These things, Barça does not control them very well, and again I think it's not elegant, but well, at the end I think both will stay. And now you will ask me, okay, but if both will stay, what will happen with those that should be registered? You will solve the exit of Iñaki Peña, also the exit of Héctor Ford, also the termination of contract of Oriol Romeu, which is not official yet, right? No? Okay. But I think it's not going to be enough. It's not going to be enough for all these players to be registered. So it means for me, the solution will end up being a endorsement, is the name, endorsement? Un aval? How do you say? A guarantee, yes, as it happened 1 year ago, a couple of years ago with Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang registrant. So I think unless something, I don't know, I imagine that tomorrow appears an important transfer offer for Héctor Ford of 10 million or something like this, which at the moment has not happened. This fair play that you will get from Héctor Ford and Iñaki Peña and the termination of contract of Oriol Romeu, I think, I'm not sure, I'm not saying 100%, I think it's not easy to get enough fair play to register all the players, maybe one or two, but at the end maybe to register Wojtek Szczesny or to register Rory Vargi, you will need a endorsement, not a big guarantee, but maybe a guarantee economic from the board. And one last thing which I forgot, even if the message from the club is that Rory Vargi to stay, in my opinion, he will leave. It's only opinion, but I have to tell you that I would also bet money that he will leave. I'm quite sure that he will leave. On loan or transfer. But I think he won't stay. It's only opinion. And it's opinion which goes in the opposite direction of the official voices of the club. But I think it's unlikely for him to stay, from what I smell of the situation.
Interesting. I think just going back to the beginning, to Casado and Fermin, it felt a little bit like putting Casado in from the start against Levante was a little bit of a message from Flick, like, look, we do need this guy, but the and
the message of putting him out at the and the message of putting him out after the first half, which is another message, no?
Another message, yeah, but you needed to be more attacking because you're 2-0 down. Gavi's obviously a different profile. But the Fermin one was interesting as well. I don't know what you've seen him like when he's usually in training or around the team sort of before the match. So I was pitch side on Saturday, and he would just cut a little bit of a lonely figure on the pitch before the game, then going to sit on the dugout on his own. Even when he was warming up, it was a bit like he probably realised once Olmo had come on at half time there was limited spaces or chances for him to come on. I don't know, he just seemed a little bit lonely. Obviously there's a lot of rumours about his sort of relationships with inside the dressing room and whatnot at the moment. He just didn't seem like the usual Fermin. His body language, I don't know if I'm reading too much into that or if that's what he's usually like, because I'm not always pitch side. But yeah, he just seemed a little bit. Maybe it was just because he didn't play, and it's normal, you're upset if you're not playing. But even before the game, like I say, when he was out on the pitch or doing the walk around and stuff, he just seemed. I mentioned it to a colleague straight away, and he agreed. He looked a little bit lonely.
Well, yeah, that's what's going on, because I don't know. I think they will stay, and I have to admit that in the last days, if I was on a trip, I have not asked, and I think they will both stay. Yeah, but who knows if Barça and the agents have told Fermin that there is a good offer in the table and that he needs to think about it, and then you want to stay, but in the background you have this office which economically is interesting, and you see that you are not starter, and you start to think, no? So maybe we are at this point, and maybe in matter of hours we read a tweet of Fabrizio Romano or whoever it is saying that hot talks between Barça and Tottenham for Fermin, or hot talks between Barça and Manchester United for Fermin. Who knows? I think he will stay because there is only 1 week more. But in football, you never know.
Also coming up this week, Champions League stage draw on Thursday. Obviously a little bit different in this new format, given you just play fixtures against different people and it's a league, so you don't sort of get like a group of death or whatnot. Although you can get difficult fixtures. Obviously the level of fixtures aren't the same, even though they make it as fair as possible. So that will be interesting. We'll also be back on Patreon later this week. Join us over there for a Q&A. In the meantime, stay positive.